This video is about a new feature appearing in version 6.1 called image albums. Images were available before, and there was an instructional video explaining how to put thumbnail images in the family tree person boxes, and even to include arbitrary images in the biographical notes. So I've prepared a small directory here with an example. I've got a tree called tree album, which I will load up. And you can see this is version 6.1. On the tools menu, you notice there's now a manage galleries, and that's an important part of this. A gallery is just a name that I've given to a group of images, and you can maintain multiple groups of images using this tool. So I go in there, and each gallery has a key associated with it. Now I've got some already defined, but I could type into this box and use the plus button to create a new gallery. Let me look at one of these. This was a test gallery, so I'm actually going to delete it using this minus key. So that's deleted that gallery. If I go into the second one, it's called Sundry Images, and it's just a collection of images I haven't put together for any particular reason. You'll notice that there's no captions on these. The number of images it shows depends on the size of the form. I can page through them, but if I resize the form, then it will show more of them. Now there's no captions because the file extension that I use for the metadata, this can be anything you want, and I normally use meta. In this example, I deliberately put bud in there to make it fail. So I'm going to change that. So it's now going to look for star.meta files in that directory and hit the change button, which is a general button for changing the properties of the gallery. And now you can see it's loaded up the metadata for many of these images, and it's got nice captions underneath, and maybe even properties. If I go into the properties window, oh yes, there's a little bit of text in there. You can put anything into the text details that you feel is important about that picture, such as identifying where it came from and a little bit of history behind the picture. But this is not an important gallery. This is just a second one just to show the flexibility. So I'm going to quit out of this and select the main one, which is my photo album. Now you'll see some of these images are the same, except the directory, which is a translation of this place key. Every gallery has one of the place keys, which is a standard feature of SVG family tree generator for locating images when they're based locally for use by the designer, and images when they're based on the internet for access by the family tree. So this is read-only because it's a simple translation of the key. And again, I've used meta for my meta file information. People who have used SVG Family Tree Generator will recognize many of these images. They're my ancestors, and I tend to use them in a lot of examples. This one at the end, Peshawar in British India, which is now in Pakistan, that's one I've added in deliberately. I've got a bit of text at the bottom indicating where I got the photograph from, and I put a place description in there. Now that is just a description. It doesn't have to be an official place name. SVG Family Tree Generator will gather these names together so that if you've used the same name more than once, then that's good. So you could just say this is my school, or such and such a school, or my home in such a road. It's anything you want to put in there. The persons list, let's come out of this one because there's no persons in this picture. But Henry Proctor, he's a very distant, ancient ancestor. This drop-down list is all the people that I've identified in the picture and related them to people in the tree. I could add new ones by using the plus button. Now this gives me a list of all of the people in the family tree that I'm working with, and if I hover over them, then it actually shows me the key now. But I could pick any of those, and it will use that as the caption. Sorry, not the caption, the reference to that person, and it will use the key together. So if I come out, you can see for Henry Proctor, it's used his personal name rather than the person box caption, and Henry Proctor is the key. Let's put that in brackets. That's important because the gallery could be used by multiple trees, and the key for a particular person may not be the same in each of the trees. So in the meta file information, it will keep a list of the relevant key for each of those trees. Those people with good eyesight will notice that there's some strange characters down there. That's just me testing. I wanted to make sure that non-ASCII characters and ones that are sensitive characters in HTML, that they get through unchanged, and that works fine. Let me switch to a different person in this gallery. Now this is an interesting one because you see that it's got a tilde in place of the key, and that's because I know who this lady is, that's her name, but she's not present in this particular tree, so it won't try and look for her when I start up. And just to illustrate this in practice, let me pick a person. There's only one person in this tree. I'm going to delete that reference using the minus button. If I come out of that and go back in, it will realize that the person hasn't been identified, and I can add them. It's William Henry Proctor, and I've got a couple of choices there, William H. Proctor, or the caption from my tree, William Henry Proctor with the birth and death. I'm just going to go for William H. Proctor. And so it's now inserted that as the reference and the key in brackets. So you don't have to worry about that. It's just use the plus key to link it to people in your tree. And of course, if you've got a group photograph like a wedding or a party, then you can add multiple people to this drop-down list. And maybe the last thing I'll show you here is if I want to change the caption, just to shorten it slightly. Come out of there, and his caption has changed. So that's fairly standard stuff for maintaining the metadata of images. Now what can we do on this? Well, the first thing is a validate, which just goes through all of the metadata for each of your images and make sure that you haven't forgot anything. So if I validate, no problems, which is what I was hoping for because this is my demonstration. If I flip back to the second one, which is the Sundry Images, I haven't provided much in the way of metadata for this, so if I validate it, I should get a list of messages, and it said there were no actual errors but 10 warnings. Now those warnings are put into the progress window. So if I just come out of this temporarily, look at the progress window, you'll see there's a whole bunch of warnings there. And you can go through those then to add in the necessary metadata. Now I'm going to go back to this and pick the index or galleries. Now what that's doing is going through all of the galleries I've got defined. So that's just the G1 and G2 now from this drop-down list. And index them to create a composite album. So now we've got two terms here. Gallery is a group of images in one particular directory, and an album is the whole collection of images from all the directories. So indexing that, what it does is create a little file, which we won't have to go into detail about it. There it is. It's just a JavaScript file with the index in. So let me show you where that JavaScript file gets used now. If I go into the normal design window, and on options select interactive applications, I've added in the expand window, and I've also added in a new application called image album, and that image album application will make use of the index. So I'm not making any changes there. Process, which generates the HTML output, and now I can view that in my browser. Right, and there's my tree. I apologize, there was a short delay there because my internet connection went down, so I've just restored it and resumed the presentation. This is a fairly standard tree that comes as one of the samples with the SVG family tree generator kit. You'll notice that it's got a button now down in the bottom left-hand corner of each box, and if I just resize this slightly, you'll see it's a little album icon. So there's a number of operations I can do on that. The first one is to just select various people, and if I do a search with a shift click on that box, down in the bottom corner of the screen there, you'll see a little search box. The search box gives me a choice of selecting images on using various criteria. So just looking at the first group of radio buttons there, I can find images with any of the selected people, which would be William Stanton and Emma Ashby. If I click the search, now that's actually gone to a new tab and it's launching the image album in that tab. Right, we're there. I just lost my internet connection yet again. So in response to this query for pictures of William Stanton and Emma Ashby, the film strip tab has shown me these 4 pictures. Now there's duplicates there because if I click on the picture, that's going to give me the details that I'd entered, plus a little bit of information about which gallery it came from. So that is from my photo album gallery, but this picture, which is identical, comes from the Sundry Images one. There's no details entered for that one. Now I could get rid of those by going back to the search box and restricting it to just my photo album gallery. So now I'm going to look for the same 2 people, but specific to that one gallery, and now it's down to just 2 images. And if I go back, I can search, select all galleries, ignore the selected people, and I just want to pick this place in British India, Peshawar, and there it is. That's in my that's in my photo album gallery, but the rest are from the Sundry Images. So as well as saying which gallery it came from, it also gives you a little reminder about the place description that you'd put in there, and then the notes. Down here on the blue strip is the caption, and if you didn't bother to put a caption in, then it would just show the file name. At any point I can restore the full list by just clicking on the image title, and that's gone back to my full 28 images. So that this tells me which image I'm looking at, and if I use these buttons to the left or the right, then it cycles through them. So that's a fairly standard film strip application. If I go back to the tree, then there's one more operation I could put on there. If I close the search box, I can do an Alt, click on the button, and that would also restore the full list. So that's covered most of the basic functionality. To make this box of details appear or disappear, I simply click on the image. So click on the image to put it back. Shift click on the button to get the search box. I'll drag it up to close to the tree. So I can search for any of the selected people or all of the selected people, which would mean that they have to be in the same picture. And if I ignore the selected people, then I can just use the place description and the image gallery as criteria. But before we close off, there's one more thing I want to cover in this, and this is not related to the your tree application or anything in the browser. This is a local feature that you can have on your Windows directory. You'll see that each of the images has one of these meta files associated with it. I'll just give you a peek, but it's not very important. So it has hash tags for the metadata, and then anything after that is your textual notes. So that's where it's storing all of the metadata. It's in separate files. The images are not modified or renamed or moved in any way. But if I double click on this, this is a nice little feature. It's now showing me the image and it's put the metadata details in front of it. I can do that with another one. Let me pick the symmetry one. Okay. Now, some of you may have actually seen this utility before. It's something I wrote quite a while ago called Metaproxy, and it's just a small Windows utility. There's no installation, just a tiny bit of configuration, and what it does is if you click on the meta file, the metadata file, then it automatically finds the image that goes with it and shows you the two. And not only that, normally if I click on the image it would load it into my default image viewer, but rather than loading the default image viewer, if I ask to open it with Metaproxy, then it does the same thing as if I'd clicked on the metadata file itself. So what that does is just make your Windows directory into something a little bit more useful than a simple collection of images. You can now get all your details up just as though you were browsing an album, a real album. And there I'm going to leave it. So thanks for watching.